It's bad to try to guess a woman's age, don't you? And there's a huge gap between 30 and 60.
I'm being censored. This is just like the book 1984 by George Orwell. I should be doing this almost every single day. First thing on the agenda. I've got a defense mechanism now. I have decided to have my notes with me from JMC. In terms of my information retention, I think we're gradually discovering that it's not as great as I thought it was. I think I'm predicting in February of next year, when I have no longer a course to do, I'll probably watch all of these podcasts through and like take extensive notes and be like, oh, wow, can't believe that happened. That's crazy. I mean, it'll be helpful. So right now I've got a document that I worked on when we were in Advanced Cine that I had called the Bible of Kim, which is all my basic camera and lighting notes, plus the ones that I was in. I don't know if you remember this, but I was an obsessive note taker in Advanced Cine. I was always taking notes. I needed them. There was so much being thrown at us that was so important that I was just like, I need all of this on a piece of paper. So I've got that open, and I have this old sort of thing that is this awful. I don't know why I thought I would do this, but my first year at JMC, I thought I would take my notes with like handwritten. I heard that it made you like retain information better, which is true. Except the people that posited that thought experiment didn't realize that I have the handwriting of a 3-year-old. A 3-year-old on horse tranquilizer is the best way of describing my handwriting, because
okay, I don't want to know where the knowledge of that analogy comes from. Let's just move right along, shall we?
Sure. Okay, so to kick off today, we're going to be looking at, this is the last week of my eyeline exercises. I did 2 yesterday, which meant I topped off the 8 that I was supposed to do. They are varying quality, varying approach. There's something wrong in all of them. So my primary lesson here has been that I need to keep doing this. So for some of them, I've taken photos of myself. Some of them I've taken photos of my brother. I've taken photos of Agamemnon. I've done used different approaches to measuring the eye lines. For Ken and Barbie, for example, I'd put my hand on their head. And like do the little eyeline thing and then flip back around and guess where I put that landed thing. This whole thing. And then for the last 3 exercises, my goal was to, so that meant either guess while taking photos or guess with pictures from movies, which was entertaining for me. It also means in the end that I get to keep drinking coffee, and tonight I get to watch Dyoon, which I've been very excited for. Haven't seen this movie before. I've only watched it like roughly 6 times. It'll be a new experience. I'm so pumped. So I think I've got them open here in my Eyelines drive. Let me share the screen with you. Eyelines. Week 1. This is where it's bad. It's real bad here. I'm not going to go Declan chat with Declan. I don't want to dox my brother on this pod, but I promised you they're fine. His nose direction's a bit off.
But I think that is actually more useful because, we did establish, didn't we, that most people don't lock their eye direction to their nose direction.
Yes. I've been struggling with eye direction and nose direction the whole time. I need to keep working on that. We've got Agamemnon talks to himself. This one's an interesting one because I did put a fair bit of work into it and use my phone for it. And then I sent it to you and you were like, Ethan, Agamemnon does not have eyes. We're not going to worry about that one. That one's fine. Week 2, I only did 1, but I put a lot of, it's real cinematic. I watched Halloween that week and I was like, got to emulate that. And this is eyeline practice with Ken and Barbie. So we got 1 degree Barbie. So I think 1 degree, my reference point was they need to be looking at your ear. I don't know if she is here.
That's
5 degrees, I reckon.
Yeah.
So you'll notice a trend here. Up until the very end, I have struggled with
that's funny. Her hair makes it look like an oval. Like if you look at it out of the corner of your eye. And
oh my God, you're right. Yeah, it does.
That's kind of why I was immediately going, well, it's almost impossible to do a 1 degree oval because you'd have to look through the foreground person.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there's a trend here where I can't discern between 5 degree and 1 degree. And that was an issue up until the end. You're going to see it everywhere.
Okay.
So 1 degree Ken is the same. It's got the same issue. 5 degrees, right? But look at that lighting. It's like a 2015 YouTube video with cinematic in the title. 5 degree Barb. Is that 30 degrees, do you reckon?
I think that's somewhere in between 15 and 30.
Yes. Again.
I'd probably say around about 20, maybe?
Same for 5 degree here. That's pretty
That
much...
one, to me, looks more like 30.
Yes. We're rough. We're getting rough here. It wasn't easy. 15 degree. I did 15 degrees for these, and it's like no difference. This is more like...
That one,
degrees?
too, as well, to me, looks more like 30.
Yeah. So at this point, and that's definitely not even 30. That's more.
That's
so
more like
as you can
45, 40?
I lit these really well.
You did?
And really up the actual eyeline part of it. I just bought a softbox. Again, I'm going to just full disclosure say that none of this went perfectly to plan. All of it is a learning experience, and I will have to persist.
May I give you a little tip?
Yes.
I think with all of them, at least for the training and practice purposes of our lines, give them appropriate looking room as opposed to negative looking room. I think
that was just the one with that.
Yeah. Like all of them
struggled with that.
But all of them so far, if this was to be like a comfortable framing, I would want them further over the side.
Oh, okay. So even like for no, that makes sense. I think I do go further to the side with these later ones. There are going to be issues.
If you go back to week 2.
Right. Okay. Actually, I didn't actually notice that.
Particularly the first and second one. See that one there? He's he's slightly right of center. If you draw center frame, it's in between the camera right eye and the nose. So majority of his face is slightly right of center.
Right. Huh.
And you go back to the very first one. She's almost dead center. So I would estimate center frame would probably be the camera left corner of her camera right eye. So camera right corner of her mouth.
Yep.
I would estimate. I'd have to measure it to be 100% sure. Now, how do you think I can tell so precisely and so quickly where the center of frame is?
Decades of practice?
There is that.
I couldn't tell you.
Back in the mists of time, when we did our red workshop at JMC, do you remember us looking at the overlays for the viewfinder?
Yes.
Do you remember which overlays I recommend?
I remember you talking about your Fibonacci plan for the
notebook
threads rule. Oh, I should check the Bible of Kim. Hang on, guys. Hang on, the Bible. Let's have a look. Let's have a squiz. Where's Red Workshop? Where is it?
You're actually really, you're way more organized with this than I am myself. I'm just kind of going in on the day and kind of go, okay, we've roughly gotten this far along the lifelong journey.
I need this. I need subheadings. I'm not one of those people who goes like, oh, I'm actually type A. I'm like type B, but I need subheadings. It's a compensation thing. Let's see if I actually wrote it down first as well, because that's a good chance I didn't.
Hey, can you search within this document?
I totally can. Let me do Control F overlay. Okay, 0 results.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a dark time for me. I'm sorry. Obviously, for some reason, I did not like this. I've got pretty extensive notes for the workshop as well. Like,
yeah.
I've got my time codes and everything. Literally, I would have been like dead in the water if it wasn't for these notes, because I was able to return to them during the short.
Good.
Like,
I mean, not that you would have been dead in the water, but good that you've got something to fall back on. That's excellent.
Yes, very, very good. All right, back to Barbie. What's the trick?
Let me fix that. Suspense. I would say that the number one overlay that I always want for framing is crosshairs.
Oh, okay. Is it the one where it's all those lines moving into the center?
No. It's like a sniper's gun.
Oh, okay. So you're like literally, you're going to shoot them.
Like literally crosshairs, dead center of frame.
Huh. I never considered that. I've still been a rule of, like, I've been a third lines fella for the whole time. Been a good fallback for me, but I realize it has its flaws. So crosshairs. Let me look at an image. Let me see.
It's literally like if you put your cursor dead center, like you did just then.
Oh, it's that thing.
Yeah,
right.
Like hair thin crosshairs.
Huh. So what's the advantage of that overlay?
Habit.
That's reasonable.
Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Old film cameras and professional video cameras would have crosshairs. So I got used to being able to relate everything to the center. Not necessarily using it as a way of centering everything, but particularly for things like looking room, very easy to see, do you have appropriate looking room or not when you have a center reference? Because you're talking like left and right of that crosshair.
Okay, all right. I'll keep it in mind. See if it's on my DSLR at some point.
That's the kind of strange thing. Like stills cameras aren't big into crosshairs.
Oh man, it's like stills cameras aren't really big into the things that I need. By the sounds of it, this week 3 is a bit of a journey. I was in a rush for the first one, and I just took a bunch of photos on my phone. not my phone, my camera, and I wanted to be like sitting. So I was like sitting across from, like, next to myself. However, the issue is here that my autofocus stopped working, and I only noticed this after I put in my computer. So some of them are out of focus, some of them have inconsistent nose direction. It's a mess. It's bad.
Again, like I said, I don't necessarily think the nose direction, that's probably good actually, that it's a bit mixed, so that we'll learn to separate eye direction from nose direction.
So we've got 15 degrees, 15 degrees again. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
See, that's a lot better, and I think also hugely helped by having appropriate looking room.
Yes.
You are looking camera left to right, and your head is on camera left.
I was a real stickler for looking room on these ones. 15 degrees right as well, so I want to make sure I'm looking at myself. Kind of similar. Accidental Dutch angle.
Yeah.
But also feels more like 5 degrees.
No, I think part of what's throwing you off is the nose direction is a little different.
And I'm looking up.
And you're looking up, yeah.
Yes, that also, so I found it out that I had to really apply scientific method to this one. Mm-hmm. I've noticed after finishing the exercise, I need to make sure that everything remains the same except for the actual variable, which is the eyeline. I need to have the same nose direction. The camera needs to be the same height. Like, it's a whole thing. 30 degrees left. Thoughts?
That looks pretty 30 to me.
Good stuff. And there's more looking room. I made sure of that.
Yeah. And that's what I find as well. As the eyeline gets wider, I generally want more looking room.
Yes, you did tell me that. And then I
as
took it to
the
heart
eyeline gets closer, I want less.
30 degree right. Again, the right, that's the amount of focus.
Yeah, and it's also a little high.
Yeah. So, and then we've got 60 degrees left, which I think ended up looking very similar to 30 degrees. So I don't know if it was much of a...
Yeah, that is maybe 45.
I struggle with the larger increments. I don't know if this one is... That one's also kind of the same.
Because
also out of focus.
That one, yeah, I think that's probably just past 45, but nowhere near. Because if you think about it, one way I think of it is when the nose direction is 60 degrees, you should only see half an eye of the far eye.
Oh, okay. That's the thing. I needed to gradually, over time, I realized that I really needed a visual reference for what these things looked like. What were the trends between the different eye lines? And there are so many variables that there aren't really any trends at all. You can't tell.
That's kind of what I want my communal Eyelines Database for.
Yes. I'll add to this, I promise.
If I go, so 15, 30, 45, 60. So if I'm looking there and I'm pointing my nose there, can you see how most of this eye is obscured by the bridge of my nose?
Yes, indeed. It's
and
almost side on.
Can you see how the tip of my nose is kind of jutting out just on my cheek? If you look at a 60-degree nose direction on a really small thumbnail, it almost looks like it's 90 degrees. But if you do look a bit closer, the difference is that you do see some of the far eye.
Right. Let's have a look. I need to optimize for video because my next one is a video. Hang on. Optimize video clip. Here we go. This is Ethan has an argument with himself. An eyeline exercise.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent exercise because, like you've got no other way of making sure that it looks like you are engaging with the other character.
It's probably quite wrong, but I liked making it.
Uh-huh. I think part of it as well is you need a bit more light in the eyes for this exercise.
So I use my window for this.
Actually see the eyes. It's a little bit difficult.
I use my window and nothing else. And it's out of focus as well. There we go.
30 degrees doesn't look bad. Oh,
good stuff. Good. I'm glad.
A lot of that, I think the 1 degrees could be quite good, but
I'm at the very edge of the frame in this one as well.
Yeah, because we're not seeing the eyes so well in the 1 degree, it's difficult to tell. But yeah, these are barely past 30.
All right.
I don't think the last two are even 45, I believe.
Seems like I have I have something to sort out with 60
with
degrees.
The wider eye lines, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to do one this morning, but I ended up getting a haircut. So had to really change my schedule. Week 4 was dedicated entirely to guessing. First half was called Bad Ken, because it's terrible. I tried to guess the eye lines, and they're poor. It's very poor. Poor form. I got 1. I was like, he's looking at my ear. He's not. That's 5 degrees, right?
Roughly, yeah.
And then 5 is somewhere in between 5 and 15.
Sorry, I didn't quite understand the intention with that.
This or what I was saying?
You know what you were saying. So what is between 5 and 15?
I think that this eyeline is somewhere between 5 and 15.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. It is, I'm not entirely sure.
15. What do you think?
That to me feels a little wide for 15.
Okay.
And I'm going by, for Barbies, I would assume that eyeline and nose direction are going to be locked.
Yeah, I can't move his pupils, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so for a 15-degree nose direction, I would expect to see at least a little bit of the far ear.
Oh, okay. I will keep that in mind.
If I do 15 degrees nose direction, you can see this, can't you?
Yes, I can.
Even a little bit of my actual ear.
A hint of an ear. So, okay, we're looking at a hint of an ear. And then 30. What are the thoughts? I'm thinking that's more like 45.
Yeah, because again, what should happen for the average person, 1, 2, 3. This eye, the corner of the eye, should start sitting right on the edge.
Okay.
So if I go 30, can you see there's a tiny little gap between the edge, the corner of my eye, and the edge of my head?
So this is 45 because his eye is just at the edge.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. Then after this, I'll go to this one last, actually. I'll do the Barbie one that I did afterwards, after I ran through all of it after stuff. Not 30, maybe 60. Okay, 1.
Hey. You know it's bad to try to guess a woman's age, don't you? And there's a huge gap between 30 and 60.
Yeah. Anyway, I have what I think is actually 1. It looks like she's looking at my ear. What do you think?
Yeah, to me that feels more like 5. But again, it's getting thrown off a little by the fact that, again...
No looking room.
Yeah.
5 thoughts?
That feels more like 15. Going by Barbie's having smaller than average ears, for an average size ear, I would just about expect to see a smidge of the bottom earlobe on the camera left side.
I think what we're noticing as a trend is that I go too wide for the smaller ones and too small for the wide ones.
Isn't that in and of itself useful knowledge though?
That's 30, not 15. And yes, I'm liking that I'm getting to understand what I'm getting wrong. It's nice. And yeah, now that you've said that there should be a little bit of a gap between the eye and the edge of the face, that's more like between 30 and 45. Meaning that this is most definitely not 30. That's 60.
Considering that her nose is small, as in Barbies have smaller than average nose, I would expect an average size nose to obscure the far eye more.
In that case, I'm happy that I wrote maybe 60 up here. That's good. That's good. I was covering my tracks.
See, that's like if you think someone's 60, you ask, hey, are you 30?
Especially when they're made of plastic.
No, you do not tell them, hey, you look like you're made of plastic.
Eyelines to guess. This was actually really helpful. I probably got a number of them wrong, but it was very helpful because I used your current Eyeline database as a reference point. I reckon there was still a bit of discrepancies between 5 and 1. Now, you may notice that I have sourced from a number of movies that I like.
Also, do keep in mind that as far as I know, at least publicly, I don't know that any other filmmakers are sticking to the same increments.
Don't worry. I kept that in mind. Yeah. That's why most of my things say less than or more than. Or
okay. Yeah,
this.
I think that's a really good approach to it. Yeah, absolutely.
For this one niche indie underground movie, we got Dyoon, which isn't opening, which of course it isn't. Like, why would it? There we go. We've got the meeting scene, which has some interesting coverage, in my opinion. Here's the master. Big meeting. We've got Leto looking at what I think is just under 5 degrees.
That to me looks more like 15, maybe 20. That looks between 15 and 30 to me.
Meaning that this, which is Thufir, is around the same. What do you think?
Yeah,
I said just under 5 for that as well.
Yeah, they're definitely wider than 5.
Gotcha. Okay. Again, I think I was thrown off here by his nose direction and how close his eyes look to the edge of his eye holes. So it is what it is. Seaside chat. These are overs. So we've got a master, Leto taking off his glove to show off his ring. We've got Oscary Wascary here, who I think is looking at just under 30 degrees, but now I think he's looking at 30. Over 30 to 45.
Yeah, I think it's between between 30 and 45.
See how my answers are changing now that we've spoken about it? Like, this is
Mm.
very, very helpful.
And this is also why I feel like I really want to drive this community aspect of the learning, because sometimes it's easy to get so kind of focused in on the analysis that we no longer even have an awareness of what we're seeing.
I need to know when I'm doing, like, I'm happy to analyze things, but I've noticed that it is extremely unhelpful when I'm analyzing things and getting things wrong all the time. So when you're part of a community, you have people there to tell you that you're differing, what you're doing things wrong. So in that case, do you think Timmy is looking around 30 to 45 as well?
I would say so, yes. I think part of what's throwing you off is that the down tilt changes the distance between eye and bridge of nose.
Yeah.
And I'm not 100% sure, but this feels like a longer lens as well.
Oh, you think?
Than the reverse. Maybe not. Potentially.
He's just doing his signature Timothée Chalamet smirk. He's throwing me off with that.
You know what it is? It's a tighter shot size for sure. Just look at the size of the heads.
Yes. No, I agree. You've got a kind of an equal amount of the shoulder, but like, especially the dirty part of the over is it takes up a lot more of the screen. Let's talk about the Big Lebowski. I don't think we do that enough on this particular show.
Sorry, what was that?
Let's talk about the Big Lebowski. I don't think we do that enough on this
somehow my headphones on.
Yeah, they just turned off. Yeah. Let's look at this master. This is Walter pointing a gun at Smokey. This is a good one. Now, I had a bit of a crisis with this one because I cannot tell if Smokey is looking at Walter or at the gun in some of these shots. We shall see. Or is Walter looking at the gun? We shall see. However, I estimated that Smokey was looking at around 5 degrees, but now I think he's looking at 15. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a little easy to get thrown off by the tilted up head.
Yes. Do you think he's looking at the gun or Walter?
I think he's looking at Walter. And the reason I'm saying that is if he was looking at the gun, first of all, I would think my guess would be that he'd be looking a smidge lower, and
that's true. Yeah,
I think also his eyes would converge a bit more.
Did you just see that the Dyoon pod notification I just got?
No.
Was I just exposed? Okay, good. I'm glad.
No. Well, right. I mean, it is now because you said it.
That's a good point. Anyway, on to Walter, who I think I've been thrown off by his nose direction, like I was with Thufir over in Dyoon, because his eyes look like they're looking more at me on account of the less whites. So, I mean, I'm happy to say it's closer to 15 now, but it looked like 5 because of
I mean, to me, this looks like a dead-on solid look with the other character.
Definitely.
Both actually very rare that you see this, but both in terms of sideways angle and in terms of vertical angle.
Right. And our final thing is a bit of a complicated one. I had a look at Lord of the Rings, and I had a look at one exchange that had 3 subjects, but still traditional coverage. So formerly Stinky Old Man, I thought he was, let me just move this. I thought he was looking at greater than 1 degree, but I wasn't sure if he was up at 5. And I'm still kind of confused. I don't know if he's looking around 5 degrees.
That looks more like 15 to me.
Wow. Okay, 15. Let's do that again. Let's have a look.
Because imagine your own camera. Imagine you standing there behind your own camera. Usually you will find the 5s and the 1s are somewhere within the outline of the camera box.
Right. And then now I think, like, does it look like he's looking
somewhere? If you were standing at the camera, behind the camera as a camera operator, can you sense whether he's looking somewhere on the camera body itself, or is he looking wider than that? He's looking wider than the camera body, isn't it?
Yes, definitely get that sense.
But to me, it doesn't look like he's looking as wide as 30 degrees.
Yeah. Okay. We'll say 15-ish. I don't know. This is a weird one. We got a 2-shot, and I reckon they're looking in different directions. What do you think? Guy on the left, I said, was smaller than 5 degrees, and that one was like Vigo, much love, was greater than 5 degrees.
No, I think the left-hand character does look about between 15 and 30. I think where you get thrown off, and I think Viggo Mortensen's eyeline is different than the other character, but for me, the main thing that's giving that away is that it looks like Viggo Mortensen's eyeline is lower.
Right.
It looks like he's looking down a little bit more, which leads me to think that he's looking at something other than what the other character is.
I think there's some crazy shit happening behind him at that point. Maybe he is. It's a good point. Cool. Anyway, that's that for the Eyelines database that I've formed. I shall add it to yours soon.
So, takeaways?
Takeaways is that I serially overestimate smaller eye lines and serially underestimate wider eye lines by the looks of it. So I think I need to start a bit of a mental replacement where if I instinctually look at something and say that's 5 degrees, it's probably 15.
Yeah.
If I look at something and say that's 1 degree, it's probably 5. And I also I like what you just said. I need to be more aware of the camera's like body in the space and the relationship that it has to the eye line. Like I had to think to myself actively, does it look like our subject is looking at the camera? Or are they looking just past it?
Yeah, I think a lot of this as well is a question for me about the general way that we teach filmmaking, not just in film schools, but in general, kind of the zeitgeist of how do we perceive what is the process of learning filmmaking. Because I guess to me, this is kind of a question of if this was a musical instrument, how many practice sessions have you had?
I've had 8 in the past 4 weeks, which for a musical instrument is way under average.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even just saying that those 8 practice sessions were practicing just one scale, even that for a beginner musician is on the very, very low end, isn't it?
Yeah. So like by the logic of a general creative arts practice mindset that's applied to every single other art form, I should be doing this almost every single day.
Yeah.
And this is just like one element of it.
Yeah.
I should be doing everything every single day.
Or have a schedule.
Or have a schedule. And you know what? I'm getting better at that. I've been figuring out, for example, I need to get, like, my number one goal for the end of this trimester is to have a writing habit. I need to be able to output as much written material of quality that I like. I've found that I'm happy to just write. I've gotten past the point where I'll stop and like think about quality. I'm happy to just write if I have the time. Yeah. Because I know for a fact that things get better with time. Writing is rewriting, that whole thing. Now that I have that confidence, I need to develop a habit. Because the only way to improve once you're at that point is to keep writing. And I've been writing on average 1 hour per week. If that, I've decided that a good writing time for me is the hour before we record this podcast. So from next week, I'm going to do that. Yep. And my goal is to simply incrementally add 1 hour of writing to as many days as I possibly can through this trimester.
If that's the goal, if that's the big goal for you creatively this trimester, I would seriously consider the morning pages.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that as well. I was just talking about that to a couple of people around me. I 100% will. I've got a bit of night pages going. I write my schedule. I hand write my schedule in my little journal at home. At the end of the day, but like when I wake up in the morning, I have it next to me now because I need it to be in my consciousness the second I awake. The issue is the like element of like time. So we wake up like 5 minutes earlier than I would otherwise wake up to do that.
To make it more tangible in the morning, do a page count.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Rather than a time. Because if you're physically doing it, then you know when it's finished and you can visualize the time and effort.
Right. What would you say is a realistic page count?
Start with 1 page. And then when that is habit, when you're confident with that you're not, that is the first thought, as soon as you're conscious in the morning, then increase.
I think I've been having a lot of, especially towards the end of the degree, a lot of thoughts about the difference between like creativity as a skill and a craft. You know, there's a lot
I think this is really important as well. It's something that I've realized that as creative industries educator, we probably need to address more consciously, and that is the difference between what an enthusiast or beginner would probably think of as pure creativity versus professional creativity.
Keep talking. I'm going to find this extract. This really blew my mind and I read it.
I think, was that difference ever explained to you or laid out to you?
No, I mean, except for maybe in screenwriting. Screenwriting has like a kind of interesting, you're always talking about the dichotomy between the rules as a professional and the way you conduct yourself, as well as like creativity.
My thing there is that one isn't necessarily better than the other. They're different. Yeah. And the difference is in accountability and deliverability, even if that's even a word.
Yes, that's the thing. I need my goal. If I want to at any point in my life say that I'm a writer or a screenwriter, I think I have not necessarily like in like the tools, but I have enough confidence and knowledge in that area. The only way I can now prove that to myself is through deliverables. You know, write a screenplay, print it out, put it in my room. Yeah. Write this screenplay, read this one. And like it is getting a lot easier because I enjoy doing it. It's definitely
Yeah.
like the area of filmmaking that I'm most confident in, second most to cine. This is a book that I just picked up from an op shop maybe a month ago. It's the first book on fiction writing that I've ever read. And this is, if it's going to go to focus, this is The Art of Fiction, Stop Being Consumed by the Void by John Gardner.
Where all the greatest creative ideas go to the void because we didn't write them down.
And his first chapter is, I was thinking to myself while I was reading it, if I'm ever an English teacher or anything in my life, if I'm ever a teacher in any creative art, I'm going to prescribe this chapter because it's got stuff like, he's talking about aesthetic law, which I believe is just a fiction term for creative laws and rules. Trustworthy aesthetic universals do exist, but they exist at such a high level of abstraction as to offer almost no guidance to the writer. Most supposed aesthetic absolutes prove relative under pressure. They're laws, but they slip. And then he goes on to talk about the well-known dictum that all expectations raised by a work of fiction must be satisfied explicitly or implicitly within the fiction, or else the audience will be unsatisfied. This is a basic rule you give to a lot of people at the very start. And then he says the second you start working on it, you discover the importance of ambiguity. And suddenly the rule has slipped and it's no longer applicable to your work. Like, it's just this crazy sense of how abstract that kind of work is, especially in like a professional manner. It's hard to be professional when the work you're doing has rules, but also doesn't.
I'm thinking more in terms of if you take one single individual shot or still image for a great number of gifted, talented enthusiasts can outdo one single isolated image from a seasoned professional. So in terms of the different types of creativity, if we just take one image out of every single image one enthusiast has ever made, and we take one image from the body of work of a seasoned professional, and we pick them randomly, chances are that occasionally the enthusiast is going to produce a better image than the professional. Where the difference lies is now go do it again.
Yes, that's what I was just thinking. Yeah, the difference is that the enthusiast isn't the enthusiast. The distinction between those two people is one of them has a professional mindset, like they're focusing on deliverable and practice.
Obviously, there are exceptions, but by and large, I see the biggest difference being that the enthusiast will define their quality level by their peak output, as in they will define themselves by their finest moment, the one image, the one production they're the most proud of. Whereas a professional will kind of not necessarily go, where's my ceiling, but where's my floor? What's the minimum quality level that I can keep delivering over and over and over and over again?
I think that is what I'm after in terms of my writing habits, which is what I'm working on. Like the reason I want to be able to write so much is because I know that I have a good enough, like a baseline inherent quality to what I write. It might not be a good quality, but it's certainly something, right? So if I am able to consistently create an output of that writing, I've proven to myself that I'll be able to suffer a professional context where I know that it might be uneven writing, but I'm getting it out there, and then I can base it off that baseline quality. Like if you're working on a TV show, you have to write almost every single week. So I want to prove to myself that I can do that, and I should. Is my camera going to go soon? Hang on.
So the one person who really was worried about the battery today.
I think so in that hypothetical writing scenario, if I'm pumping out all these pages, the way I should define myself professionally isn't by the best pages I produced, but by the quality I can guarantee, which is the lowest quality. That's what I can guarantee.
That those pages actually will be delivered.
Yeah, and it's like baseline quality and deliverability. Those are the two things you can guarantee to actually have it like a job somehow. Yeah, I need to start. My number one issue is right now. This pod is a great way of keeping me on track with cine because I have because I'm more confident with writing. I have a lot of intrinsic writing motivation. I'm happy to get it all done. I can do it quite fast. And then with cine, I think I'm still at the enthusiast level.
This is kind of where as an educator in the field, I'm kind of coming to the conclusion that I am on a bit of a crusade, I suppose you can call it.
It's a good crusade.
To update our teaching philosophy, because I feel like subconsciously we are still stuck in teaching as if we were shooting on film. The whole structure of how we go about teaching filmmaking to me feels like the means of production, film production, the means of production was so expensive that no one could afford to practice like a musician.
Yeah, like we're still kind of functioning functioning under the assumption that we're working with some kind of limited medium that costs $200 per roll. Would you be willing to call this the curriculum changing of yours to reference the movie we just spoke about and the book? This is the Sarginian Jihad. This is the...
I think that is probably in the wider context of society outside of
Dyoon? Not
and like general geekdom probably sounds a little on the political side of the cuff with the J word in there.
Not everyone has read the funny book about the worms and the robots. That's a good point. You got to remind me.
Yeah. But my point being that I feel like much of the approach to particularly the technical craft side of filmmaking, where the expense was in terms of teaching, is a combination of sink or swim on the one hand and one and done on the other hand.
Yes, there's definitely a kind of, let's send you off to make a short. And then you're going to not make a short for like a year because...
Or it's like, you know, here's a tutorial on doing X, Y, Z. And if you're lucky during that tutorial, maybe you get to follow along. So you get to do it once. And then we're assuming that you're done learning it. So that one and done. That was a bit weird, wasn't it?
It was very surreal.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much of that is... not just from an official institutional educator's point of view, but the industry as a whole. Because I'm wondering, like, you see all these YouTube tutorials, and I'm not saying that they're not doing a good job, but it's kind of like, have one lesson, now you know how to light like XYZ. Or now, having watched one 10-minute tutorial, you automatically know everything you need to know about XYZ technique or XYZ equipment or whatever. In terms of all the content you see online for filmmaking, how much of that is repeatable, endless, rote exercises that you are supposed to do 100 times, 1,000 times?
I don't think I've watched a YouTube video that's offered an exercise before. I think that the fact of the matter, I mean, in their defense, you can watch a YouTube video over and over again.
Does any of the content feel like it's designed to be repeated endlessly?
No. You click all caps, how to light like Roger Deakins, parentheses, cinematic, parentheses, 5-minute video.
Even more misleading, everything you need to know about XYZ in 5 minutes.
Everything you need to know about cameras. Yeah, everything you need to know is a lie. It's a lie.
My point being, though, that I'm not entirely sure where to start, to be honest, in terms of changing the culture, changing the perception, changing the expectation of how best to go about learning to become a filmmaker, particularly in the trenches, the hands-on crafts parts of it.
We could divert this to the audience. How have you learned in the digital age, on your own, potentially, how to do this kind of thing? How do you think it should be changed? What do you think? What do you reckon we could divert to our viewing audience?
First of all, do you agree? Do you disagree? Because obviously I come from that background. I did learn it at a time when the number one motivating factor in learning was don't mess up. His XYZ expensive image making, whatever. If you don't mess up too badly, you're going to get a second attempt. Obviously, that has colored the difference I see. I didn't grow up as a filmmaker in an environment where I could potentially practice every single day, where things were as readily accessible so that I could practice every single day. So, viewer, what do you think? Do you agree with me or do you disagree? Do you think we should practice more like musicians or athletes?
Sweet. Lovely.